Imani. About to call you Imani, but it's Imani. And I got you. Hey, everybody. I'm watching the chat window. Make sure you all can hear me on all fronts. I think that this might need to be turned up just a little bit. All right. I'm going to wait for people to come on here. Okay. How this is going to go is we're going to try to fix the bad lighting on here. There we go. How this is going to go is that once again, I'm live streaming on both YouTube and Instagram. And in case you missed the announcement, I'm going to choose a couple people to pull cards for before I do the actual new moon reading. I've got my golden thread tarot here for the new moon, and then I'm going to use my handy dandy radiant Rider-Waite tarot to pull cards for someone. In the meantime, let's talk about what's going on. So, y'all know that I'm People's Oracle. I'm Dana. Dana Lynn Knuckles. That's Knuckles, similarly pronounced like the back of your hand, but there's no K at the beginning of my last name, FYI. So we are out of this whole Leo nonsense. And now we've had this full moon in Aquarius 2 weeks ago. And if you recall, I was saying how important that particular full moon was because of what was going on in the American United States astrological kind of timeline, as well as for Donald Duck, number 45. His birth chart was being hit pretty hardcore, and sure enough, full moon in his seventh house, and he gets hit with an impeachment inquiry, which is like the worst legal problem that you could have. Second, maybe to, the death penalty being on the table. So now we're at this full moon, new moon in Virgo, which was yesterday. I didn't get a chance to actually do the new moon reading before the new moon because life was life in this week, and so I had to just go on in life with it. But not to be too long-winded here, a lot of the stuff that I've been talking about with regard to Mutable Madness 2019 and how do we know what we know and why do we believe what we believe and why do we do what we do and why do we do what we do even though it's contrary to what we say we believe, even though what we believe is contrary to who we say we are. All of these dissonances, the why and the what and the how. Virgo is data, it's numbers, it's facts. One of my two phrases for this particular transit, which this phase of Virgo phase of Mutable Madness 2019 ends November 10th once Mars finally leaves Virgo for Libra, my words for this phrase are refuting the irrefutable. I mean, let's just watch how those words rise up around us. This idea of refutable evidence and refuting the evidence and evidence and evidence and evidence. I mean, these are data words. The idea of evidence is that if you are sane and in your right mind and you are not stupid, then obviously you can see this. You see how condescending that is, right? Obviously this is what it is, and your inability to see it has to do with your stupidity and lack of knowledge or common sense, right? This is what we're told when in fact words mean things, and the words that you use to articulate something really form someone else's understanding. We all have our own dialects and syntax and ways that we communicate and talk, and these things are a reflection of who we are and our culture, our identities, both self-designated and assigned. One of the things that I was talking about last week in my weekly, weekly live video was that climate change has a PR problem because they keep repeating facts and figures and data as if anybody cares about that. People care about their own lives, their own home, their own food, their own safety, their own shelter, their own lives, their own cities. And unfortunately, repeating that the glaciers are melting does not bother. No one cares. Do I see a glacier? Now, let me just be clear. The glaciers melting are important. My point here is that unless people are able to perceive how something affects them personally, your data does not matter. Your evidence, your irrefutable evidence, does not matter. Your numbers, hi, Michaela, I hope I'm saying that right, doesn't matter, right? So stories are better than facts. And this is something that we're going to be watching as we move through the rest of this mutable madness Virgo phase. That you can have all of the data and irrefutable evidence that you want, but stories are better than facts. Stories are about identity. So, which story do you believe? And why do you believe it? Cool thing happening. I'm going to talk about this more on my Instagram live tomorrow, Monday. What is tomorrow? September 30th. I am going to talk about how Mercury has now moved into Libra, soon getting into position for our fall 2019 Mercury retrograde. Yes, people, it's that time. Mercury is in Libra today. And so now with 3 other planets still in Libra, so Sun, Venus, and Mars. Venus will be, I'm sorry, let me slow down. With 3 planets still in Virgo, at least until Venus enters Libra this week, those planets are all answering to Mercury in Libra. Libra is going to bring back people. Last quarter of 2018, there was a Venus retrograde in Libra. Jupiter was wrapping up its transit through Libra. Libra is justice for and by women. It is consensus. It is fairness. It is equality. It is strikes and protest. It is the labor movement. It is fair pay. It is fair working conditions. It is fair benefits. It is justice, justice, justice. It is protest. It is consensus. So you keep those words in mind. I'll talk more about it tomorrow. So who on Instagram here wants to? I've only got like 3 people here. I'm not picking you, Betty, because you're one of my clients. All of y'all are my clients, and y'all want to get readings on here. Who on Instagram would like for me to pull a few cards on them? I would prefer if you're not a client of mine. Please let somebody else have a chance. Y'all already got y'all stuff. I don't know who Clyde Bone is on YouTube, so I am going to pull a couple cards for Clyde. No question required. This is just general, no topic. So I am going to pull a couple cards for Clyde Bond. Not you. You said same here. Okay, not you. All right, well, let me come over to YouTube. Oh, who is Honey Resin? I'm going to pick you. I just turned around with the cute little rose. Honey Resin. Let's see what we got here for you. This is just my regular Radiant Rider Waite Coleman Smith Tarot. Honey Resin on Instagram. The card on the bottom for you, honey, is the 8 of Cups. So this tells me that you are at a moment where you're ready to leave behind something that you have been deeply emotionally invested in. Maybe it was a relationship or job or something that you really, really, really wanted, and that meant something to you. But it's like at this point you recognize that this way of thinking or this belief or lifestyle or relationship no longer is nurturing and fulfilling you. And so the 8 of Cups always speaks about walking away from something that it may not be inherently wrong or bad, but it just doesn't fit for you anymore. I'm going to draw 2 cards here. Hierophant and Ace of Cups. Are you trying to get divorced? I mean, that's what kind of popped in my mind immediately for you, Honey Resin, is that there's a breakup in a relationship. Hierophant, though, is all about institutions, and institutions can be governmental, they can be educational, they can be religious. I don't know if you are going through some kind of spiritual change where you're leaving behind a particular religion or community. Another kind of thing that comes up for me looking at these cards, honey resin, is the possibility of like immigrating from one country to another. Um, the Eight of Cups on the bottom here, kind of, I don't know where honey went, but they're not saying anything. The Ace of Cups and the Eight of Cups here speaks to your emotional needs. So whether this is a relationship or a need for shelter or home, there's something involving an institution like a college or university. So maybe you're leaving behind a course of study. But I think all in all, this change is beneficial for you because it looks like you're going after something that's really in alignment with what your needs and desires are. So this has been a journey of you figuring out what it is um, that you need rather than what you should want or have. Um, this is a really kind of positive change and dynamic moment for you, honey resin. And yeah, if there's anything that you have to do involving the government, a college or university, or a church, any kind of change involving those things, this is a really beneficial time and opportunity for you to do that. Okay, who is this on here? Oh, okay, I am gonna pull for Clyde. Okay, okay. No divorce, I'm leaving port. Look at that. Oh, I love it. Well, it is totally for you to do, honey resin. Those cards are telling you that really hone in on what your needs are. And I feel like there's a juxtaposition between maybe what might be socially expected of you from your family or culture versus what really would nurture and feed you. And this is really a journey of you getting to hear and feel your own body, your own mind, and your own needs free from the clutter of other people's expectations and desires, about what they might want for you or think is right for you. Okay, this is the last person I'm going to pull cards for on YouTube, Clyde Bond. Um, Clyde Bond on YouTube. I don't know what twin flame cards are. I don't know what twin flames are. Um, I'm just serious. I don't know. Y'all know I'm not really into that stuff. So I'm going to pull two cards for Clyde Bond on YouTube. You're welcome, honey resin. Um, and then thank you, Lueda. Um, Lueda. Um, yeah, so let's pull for Clyde Bond on YouTube. And then we're going to get on with this new moon reading with my other deck. All right, Clyde Bond. You got the Three of Cups. This is the card of fun, friendship, sisterhood, or brotherhood, dating, love, bonding, getting to know someone, a new relationship, love. Maybe you're looking for love. Maybe you're looking for this kind of experience of community and joy and sharing and relationship is the key for this card. This is the kind of relationship usually where you're dating or there might be sex or anything like that involved. And for Clyde there, so you could see. Yeah, so this is about love. This is about relationships or sisterhood. If you got some sisters. Um, all right, we got the Strength card for Clyde here, and we've got the Page of Cups for Clyde here. All right, so the story I imagine with these cards here, Clyde, is there is someone that you are newly dating or seeing or interested in, and there is a lot of attraction here. And maybe for some reason you're trying to hold back your impulses of how you would normally act in a relational situation. Maybe it's that there's a lot of intense chemistry and you're trying not to rush into it. The advice here in the cards, I think, is about really letting your feelings develop and figure out if you really like this person before you go any further. Um, there might be some initial attraction and chemistry. I don't know if it's a case where one person is more interested than the other person is, but there's definitely a sense here with the Strength that you're trying to find the right moment and the right outlet for your feelings, Clyde. That you are, the Strength card is always about restraining our impulses, being, not being impulsive and just doing something because the feeling or impulse rises in you. The Page of Cups here is a card of really figuring out how you feel. If this is a new relationship, the Page of Cups often means that you need to give it a little time and you need to figure out how you feel before you go any further. It's really an exploratory stage. So I would say don't rush things. Hey, Teresa, don't rush things, go slow. And this is an opportunity for you to do something different than you've done before in the past. So that's that for you, Clyde. What is it, little boy? Go away. These kids here knocking on my door. I told them I was in here. That's why you gotta lock kids out, because they're crazy. They come in here and barge in on your reading. They don't care who you talking to. I hope that was helpful, Clyde. All right, let's get to this new moon. Next time I do a new moon reading, I'll pull cards again. So make sure y'all. What is it? No, I can't because my iPad is in use. So you have to wait until I'm finished. All right, let's pull some cards for this new moon. I decided that I was not going to pull. You're welcome, Clyde. That I was not going to pull. Stop playing with that door. That I was not going to pull 9 cards this time because that reading be taking too long. And honestly, we could get to it in the first 3 cards. So I'm going to draw less cards than I usually do, but trust me, don't you worry, biddies, my beloveds, don't y'all worry, because y'all will still get what you came for. Y'all will still get what you need. Just hold tight, baby. Hey, Nubia. And I saw Shanti on here. Y'all know where to find me for a reading. Don't be acting funny. Not you, Nubia. I'm talking to Shanti. Y'all got to check out Curvy Madam on Mondays. She does Makeup Mondays. If y'all on Instagram, check out Curvy, Curvee Madam. That's my girl Ashanti. She is a dope makeup artist who I've been friends with for a while, and watching her just blossom into the professional, amazing makeup artist she is. Every Monday on Facebook and Instagram, she goes live showing you how to do different looks. This is the Golden Thread Tarot, for those who are asking. All right, so let's get this show on the road. I really love doing these readings on Sundays because I'm not in a rush and people are free to join, but life don't always be working out that way. Plus I be working on Sundays sometimes. Veronica, I keep looking at your email in my inbox like, Lord, give me a minute to please get to it. I don't want to act like I'm unappreciative of your efforts. Yes, I love this deck. I don't like their app because they don't have an option to turn off reversals. I don't use reversals. All right, let's see what this new moon is talking about, y'all. 3 of Swords. Yes. 3 of Swords. What is the 3 of Swords, people? This is about cut out all the yin yang. Stop beating around the bush. Ain't no hemming and hawing. Right? The 3 of Swords is not that. The 3 of Swords is right to the middle. If there was a card that would be the verb for what the Queen of Swords does, the 3 of Swords, right? Yes, this is the new moon in Virgos. Always sidereal, never tropical. I'm never talking about tropical. I am not a sidereal. I'm not a tropical astrologer, and I am not a Vedic astrologer. What I could do is called divination for liberation. We'll talk about that another time. So we've got the 3 of Swords here on the bottom of the deck for this new moon. The 3 of Swords, I said if there was a card that represented a verb for what the Queen of Swords does, the Queen of Swords would do the 3 of Swords. This is about precise language, cutting right to the heart of the matter, no coddling. And not that there's anything wrong with coddling. Sometimes you got to put a little butter on it and butter them up to get what you want. But the 3 of Swords is about getting right to the meat of the issue. If you've been in a situation where there's indecision, where you've been lacking enough information to make a judgment, the 3 of Swords talks about that moment where you're like, you know what? This is what it's going to be. And there's really nothing for us to discuss. There's really nothing for us to have a further conversation about, because the 3 of Swords, you see that? It's like, this is really just what it is. It can be a card that's indicating breakup, but it's often around someone who's been hemming and hawing and being indecisive. And it's more about the moment of coming to clarity and communication, the courage to acknowledge your own truth, to acknowledge the facts, to really be clear about what it is that you're seeing. Oftentimes, when we hear about the sign Virgo, we might think of words like perfectionism, but the word is not perfectionism. It's precision when we come to Virgo. Precision is 1.13425 millimeters. That's precision. Perfectionism is, ooh, it kind of looks and feels right. Move it a little bit to the left. Yeah, I like it this way. That's perfectionism, and that is not Virgo. Virgo is about precision. So we can often think of this Three of Swords cards as precision in language, in that you get right to the meat of it, that you say what it is that needs to be said without any, I don't know, right? So that's what this new moon is about. We're going to go one card at a time here since I'm trying not to do 50 million cards. Um, the first card here is the Fool. So this is really a moment of, coming to clarity and being precise with your language. I imagine an opportunity to be precise with your inner dialogue, that your inner conversation, this inner conversation that you have is your own personal script. It is your own screenplay. You're narrating your inner processes, you're narrating the external world, and oftentimes this narration can be a repetition of emotional patterns that aren't relevant to the present. So this Three of Swords is kind of a brutal kind of honesty with yourself that necessitates a change in the way you show up in your environment. The Fool card here often means that we are releasing expectations. And I don't mean this in the new age way where you get into a relationship and you just kind of like, I don't know, you don't have no expectations, ain't no attachment here. I'm just here in the present moment. Like, give me that. I hate it. Not that kind of no expectation. The no expectation as being open to opportunity and possibility, not really necessarily having a plan and going for it. So there is a freedom that comes with this kind of honesty with your internal dialogue. There's a kind of freedom that comes with telling the truth. When you keep telling a story about who you are, and this story is not accurate, this story is not precise, this story is not representing the truth you perceive now, it acts as a prison that keeps you behaving in a certain way, but it also acts as a prison in how you interpret the world around you and the relationships that you have with people. When you can be brutally honest with yourself, when you can pause that inner tape and you can start telling the truth to yourself and stop coddling yourself, it frees you. It's not necessary to tell that truth to anybody else because it's going to show up in your actions. I often say, and I've said this during another reading earlier this year, might have been during the full moon in Virgo reading, which was the first one of these I did back in March, that oftentimes your internal script that you're repeating to yourself over and over and over again is the very thing that's keeping you from change. It's not people around you. Yes, there may be external oppression or situations that are problematic for you, but when you change your perception, which in some cases, at least in this reading, can begin with changing your internal dialogue, you really free yourself up from showing up in a certain way in your relationships with people. You free yourself up from showing up in a certain way in your own life, with your work, with your children, with your family, all of these different spaces. So we started off with this Three of Swords at the bottom and the Fool being the first card. And I just really see this new moon starting a cycle with an opportunity for freedom. And freedom being releasing yourself of old expectations, right? Next card here is Queen of Pentacles. This is my self-care card, but I often say the Queen of Pentacles is about taking responsibility for yourself and your body and all of your obligations. Is there an opportunity for us to, let me rewind, because one of the parallels between the Three of Swords on the bottom here and the Queen of Pentacles has to do with economy and frugality. The Three of Swords is economy and frugality of words. Remember I said if the Queen of Swords had a card that represented what she actually does in practice and in action, it would be the Three of Swords. So this is really telling the truth, not because you're being preachy about it, but because my job is to be precise with language and words and to say what it is without having to walk around it, to go right to the center and the meat of it. I can be a Queen of Swords person kind of times, a lot of times, because I'm very direct. But that's what the Three of Swords requires and is asking and gives us an opportunity to do, to be really direct. Being direct means that we don't have to do all of the pleasantries and we don't have to do all of that. Hey, how your mama, how your daddy, how you doing? It's like, no, just tell me what you want and what you're doing and how we're going to do it so we can do it. And then we can move on, right? That's very Three of Swords energy. So the Queen of Swords is frugality as well. Instead of words, which are often swords, or ideas or concepts, which are swords, with Pentacles, we are talking about our money, we're talking about our time, we're talking about our energy, and any resource that can dwindle down. So the Queen of Pentacles is about being frugal, about making the best use of her time, energy, and resources. It seems like this is just a moment of kind of pulling in where we might have spread ourselves thin. Maybe we have overindulged in conversation, overindulged in the responsibilities that we have taken on. But the Queen of Pentacles under the Three of Swords here, and this is really about a kind of frugality in our lives of drawing in. I imagine that with the changes that are happening both in our collective worlds and our personal lives leading up to this point, and especially as we get to December 2019 and January 2020, this is really requiring us to focus in really hard on what is most important to us. Anytime we are paying attention to what Saturn's doing, which is all the time, Saturn is telling us the story of what does reality require of me right now? Not my hopes and my dreams, not my ideals, not my wishes or fantasies or desires. Y'all go away. We need some internet. Okay, you gotta wait till I'm finished. You see these kids? Right, whenever we're talking about Saturn, we are talking about reality and dealing with reality, not your concept or idea of what something should be, not your feeling or emotion about what something would be. But like, if you run up against the wall is there. The wall has no feelings for you. It's not punishing you. It's not rewarding you. It doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't have any feelings. It's just a wall meant to hold up the building. And if you want to tell a story about the wall, then that's your prerogative. Tell your lovely little story about the wall. You know, anthropomorphize the wall, give the wall the feelings, make the wall hate you, make the wall love you and punish you. The wall could be your mama, your daddy, whoever. Saturn is talking to us about reality. And the Queen of Swords here is someone who is very, very, very interested in what is reality. What do I have? How many do I have? And what can I do with it? So now we have these two parallel narratives around frugality with words, getting right to the heart of it, you know, discarding any extraneous, unnecessary language, internal dialogue that frees us to really focus on our responsibilities and obligations and the things that are most important to us. That's really the story of the Queen of Pentacles here. Look at that Eight of Cups. Here we go with the Eight of Cups. That was the same card that was in Honey Resin's reading. There's really something in these cards about a moment of reckoning in a way. Reckoning meaning to make peace, to reconcile, to accept what really, really, really is. I imagine that for some of us, there may be some difficult conversations, or they may not necessarily be difficult. They may be conversations that finally clear the air, and tell us the truth about what's really, really, really going on inside of us and how that's impacting our relationships and the world around us. So when we get to the Eight of Cups, this is, as I just told Honey Resin, the Eight of Cups is about leaving. This is about walking away from something that you are no longer invested in, that no longer has meaning or value for you, that is no longer aligned with how you see yourself and your place in the world, who you're becoming, your purpose and intentions. There's a leaving behind. Something about these cards makes me a little bit on edge because if I feel like there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of things that maybe don't look like they're connected, but they are connected. So I would say that looking at your life right now and the major conflicts or issues or challenges, if y'all knock on this door one more time, um, looking at the conflicts and issues going on in what seem to be disparate parts of your life, there's something here about finding the underlying thread that is connecting them. Now, without knowing any of your business, the underlying thread is you. And so I would say that there's something about a shift that happens when we're no longer making things in our lives about what other people are doing, their faults, their problems, their issues. Um, that when we come back to who you are and who you're becoming, it's not about what's the concept I'm looking for? It's not about like there's a concept in New Age thinking where that often leads to lack of accountability in relationships because when they say everything is you and this is just a reflection of you, there becomes an opportunity for people to not hold others accountable. It becomes an opportunity for no boundaries. And that's not what I mean here when I say that everything is about you. What I'm saying is something that's been a huge theme this year in our astrology is that how I judge you and the story I tell about who you are and your role in my life says more about who I am. Meaning, I judge you in contrast or in congruence with how I perceive myself. I will see you as someone with whom I can create a villain. I can see someone who I can, who might play the role of villain. And this person might very well be a villain. They might be trash, and you might have to cut them off or call them to the table or whatever it may be. But the point here that I'm making is this, yes, what Michaela is saying about holding yourself accountable, telling the truth to yourself, minding your own energy and resources, and reckoning with reality in a way that, we spend so much time and energy avoiding things that the Queen of Pentacles talks to us about. All right, what are the real things that you're responsible for? You, your body, and then what are the things outside of you? What are the people outside of you? Um, when I see this Eight of Cups here, something tells me that you may have taken on as a responsibility something that is not yours to be responsible for. Or maybe you have taken on a responsibility that you're no longer invested in the well being of. You understand what I'm saying? That the Queen of Pentacles can be so frugal and can be so caught up in being responsible and just being practical that they can end up taking on things that aren't really their responsibility. The Queen of Pentacles can be like the adult in the room. And so if you feel like you've had to be the adult in the room all the time, the Eight of Cups is saying, what if you just walked away from that? What do you fear is going to fall apart if you are no longer the adult in the room? This doesn't mean to start acting like a child. This doesn't mean to start being vengeful or, being immature in conflict and things like that. That makes a whole lot of sense. Modi Beats with that codependency, absolutely. What does it look like for you to walk away from being responsible for things that you are no longer responsible for? A narrative that's kind of emerging here is somehow all of a sudden feeling free, not being responsible for things that are not yours, and having the courage to walk away. And, with this Eight of Cups, is kind of like this person may have had fears that all of these cups were going to fall apart and that, the stack would fall down and that things wouldn't work or function anymore. But oftentimes it's important to remember that you can't protect people from their own folly and downfall. You cannot protect people from the consequences of their own their own choices and decisions. You cannot protect people from the feelings that they have in response to who you are and what you do. You cannot protect people from your own truth. Oftentimes we don't tell the truth to ourselves. Three of Swords, we're not honest, we beat around the bush because we're afraid of the consequences that will have on our relationships. But at some point, the dissonance becomes too loud and you can't continue to tell that old story anymore. So here are our questions for this new moon. What are you walking away from that you no longer feel responsible for? Who or what is it that you are releasing guilt and fear around, something falling apart because you're no longer tending to it, right? Do you really need to tend to it in order for it to sustain itself? And if you are the only person who is invested in sustaining it, and if it really falls apart when you walk away, obviously the other person or the other people involved weren't invested in it. Now, this is not to say that you can't be the only person invested in something. That's not the case. Sometimes you are, and sometimes you're holding something up until you get into a community and space or relationship with people who have the same values as you. But this particular moment is about you can't be the only adult in the room. And if you're the only adult in the room in this particular situation, maybe it's time to go, right? If you tell yourself the truth about what's really going on, um, yeah, I'm feeling like I want to draw two more cards. It looks really pretty the way it's laid out. All right. I feel like these cards really are reiterating what I've just said here. Page of Wands and the Five of Swords, which is one of my favorite cards here. I'm going to start with the Page of Swords, the Five of Swords here, and then I'll talk about the Page of Wands. Five of Swords, and I'll talk about the Page of Wands. Five of Swords. This is one of my favorite cards. I want you to see the visual here. And this one sword kind of cutting through. Thank you, Tatiana. You tired of me? I love you too, Reed. Happy birthday, Reedy Reed. The Five of Swords. Swords are about ideas and concepts. We first got introduced to swords in this reading today with the Three of Swords that was on the bottom of the deck when I cut the cards. And we talked about the Three of Swords speaking to us about not beating around the bush, being honest with ourselves in our own internal dialogue, and watching the ways that our radical self-honesty manifest in our relationships with other people, our job, and the world around us. The Five of Swords here on the bottom, right here we have these swords coming back again. And the Five of Swords is disregarding the opinions and judgments of other people. A lot of times, our inner dialogue is not our own voice. And our own voice is really, really quiet. But through experiencing the same conflicts and external circumstances over and over again, our own voice gets louder and louder and louder. And at one point it gets so loud that you decide you really want to hear what that voice is saying. But there's a lot of noise around. There's a lot of extraneous extra where you cannot hear your own voice. The Five of Swords talks about disregarding the other voices that keep you from hearing your own voice. This new moon is about telling yourself the truth. This new moon is about telling yourself the truth and the freedom that that gives you to really figure out what is most important to you. When you tell yourself the truth, you can be honest about your limitations. You can be honest about what you're really capable of. You can be honest about the resources and time and energy that you have to invest. And when you realize how limited those resources really are, now you realize that some of the things that you were pouring so much energy into are not worth your time and energy. What are those relationships? Is it your job? Is it a relationship with your parents, your mother, or your father? Is it a relationship with your significant other? Is it a relationship with something that you struggle with, like an addiction? What are you realizing that you no longer have the energy for? What are you realizing that, given your real limitations, You want to abandon or walk away from something that you've been pouring into. So when we get to the Five of Swords at the end, this is the courage to really disregard those voices that rise up and tell you that you cannot, you should not. It's the guilt that rises up and tells you and judges you. Guilt is our socialization. It's a very, very important tool. Guilt and shame. These are very, very important um, socialized emotional experiences that are meant to guide us towards behavior that is beneficial to ourselves and other people. However, when we internalize narratives that are not in alignment with our adult selves, then the guilt comes up that keeps us from really being who we are, right? And again, I always like to be clear about the way that I use certain things, and I refrain from saying certain phrases because the connotations of them in a new age kind of whatever spiritual woo woo thing that we've got going on now um, is often not what I mean. So I refrain from saying things like authentic because I don't really think there's a such thing as an authentic self. There's the self that I envision myself to be, there's the self that I want to be. There's the self that I am at work. There's the self that I am with my friends. There's the self that I am in private. The self that I am in private is not appropriate for the self that I for work. The self that I am in private is not appropriate at the grocery store, right? So these are all authentic. Being an adult means that you know how to show up in the appropriate way for the environment that you're in. But oftentimes we're still operating from that childhood fear of rejection or abandonment. And so even our internal dialogue, our internal self-talk has been co-opted by other people's voices. So when we get to the Five of Swords, this is about disregarding their opinions, disregarding their judgment, not because you don't care about what they think. This is not for lack of care. This is not for lack of value. You may very well value their opinions, and you probably do. You probably do value their opinions, and you respect their judgment. But that doesn't mean you have to live your life by it, right? The Page of Swords. We're making a map here. Page of Swords. Sorry, the Page of Wands. The Page of Wands is the perfect card to come after the Eight of Cups. Because after we've gathered up the courage to withdraw our emotional investment from things that we are we're like, yeah, I'm good on that. At one point, I really thought this was what I wanted. At one point, I thought that this was what I was going to do, who I was going to be, the relationship, the job, where I was going to live, the community that I was going to be a part of. But you know what? Somehow I can finally hear my own truth and I feel free enough to walk away from those things. This is requiring you to accept that there are limits. No, I'm sorry, you're not five. You cannot be, do, and have anything that you want. You can't. That's not the way life works. You have to choose from a limited number of options because you have a limited number of years. You have a limited amount of energy. You have a limited amount of resources. So, what are you choosing to invest in and what are you divesting from? The Page of Wands is the map maker. This is the phase or time where we are plotting out a pathway. We are seeing what our options are. Wands are about the will. They are about your physical will, what you're actually capable of. They are about your intentions, what motivates you to act. And they're about that healthy sense of entitlement that gives you enough balls and titties and ovaries, all of them. I was trying not to be that person that, you know, uses men's genitalia as being indicative of courage because obviously it's not. They're not. They're not indicative of courage. They're actually very cowardly. So I don't know what to say, but I'm just gonna keep talking. Uh, the entitlement that gives you the courage and the audacity, that's the word I'm looking for, the audacity to act. You have to have courage and audacity to act. Because who are you to think that your guts, thank you, Dan, guts, who are you to think that your actions matter? Who are you to think that if you take a step, you're going to get to where you're going? Who are you to think that you're strong enough to make this happen? Right? Who are you? This is the healthy sense of entitlement that absolutely, absolutely, yes, I have the audacity and the guts and the wherewithal and the I wish you would, right? The Page of Wands is in that state of saying, wow, I'm feeling my new legs. Correct. That's why I was trying to fix that. But Page of Wands is let me try out my new legs. Ooh, look at that. I got a little muscle there. Let me see what I can lift. Right? It's a testing out and map making phase. It's the opportunity. I hate you, Pamela. I don't really hate you. I love you, but you're funny. Testing out our new legs, testing out our strength. Really, I'm thinking the visual I get of the Page of Wands is like the toddler who's just now learning how to walk and they want to go everywhere. There is nowhere that they do not want to go because it's not really even about going. It's about, ooh, I got legs. Ooh, I can walk. Y'all see these things? Look, they move. Ooh. Them kids are so loud outside. They're like, ooh, look, y'all. Look, ma. Look. I'm going. I'm going. That's why you got, like, y'all be seeing people's kids on leashes outside, because when you get your new legs, you don't even be knowing where you're going. You just like, hey, let me just go, right? That's the Page of Wands energy. The Page of Wands energy is this perceiving possibilities of where to go, and this freedom thing that's in here, this freedom theme that's in this reading of, like, what are you going to do with your time and energy now? Like, you're not pouring into this person. You're not pouring into this relationship. You're not pouring into this job anymore. You're not pouring into this project. This desire or goal that you have is no longer the thing that you're pouring into. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Well, the Five of Swords is giving us a little advice and a warning that other people have opinions and they have judgments that they will likely make heard to you. Other people will have ideas about who you should be and what you should do. But the Five of Swords is advising us to, as we're trying out our new legs, as we are making a map of possibility about where we want to go and how we want to invest our energy with this new freedom, the Five of Swords is saying it's tempting to fall back on those old stories when other people start regurgitating the very script that you had just like let go of, like you stopped all that talk. You stopped all that talk. Why are they still talking about it? Well, that's a little complicated thing, and we're not going to go into that because it doesn't really matter. You don't need to understand them in order to say la 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 la. Right? You don't have to understand them to put your fingers. And when I say understand them, understand their motivations and intentions. It's not really necessary because it's just not. We live in a world where we're supposed to give country to everyone's opinions, and we're supposed to put a seat at the table for every idea. And it's like, no, actually, your ideas are harmful to me. They're violent to me. Your ideas are putting my life and well-being in danger. Your ideas and your conversation undermines my own convictions and my own intentions. If you're not supporting me in this endeavor, then we really don't have anything to talk about. These Three of Swords and Five of Swords are harsh cards. They're difficult to embody. On Twitter, it's very easy to say, I'm just telling the truth, because you don't have to look nobody in the face and you don't have to feel their heartbeat and their body temperature and their skin color changing, getting flushed at the anger, right? Because when you see those things, then your own body is like, oh, we're in danger here. You might want to shut your mouth. You might want to lock it down, right? So in real life, though, it's really hard to be like, you know what? I'm not even hearing you, right? Because we've been taught that we should value all opinions. And the Five of Swords is like, absolutely not. No. Every opinion is not valuable to you. Every opinion is not important, and there are some opinions that are outright dangerous to you. Do not be afraid to disregard those opinions, right? There's something in here about what you're consuming and what you're listening to, who you're listening to, who you're valuing. Um, and there's something here. I mean, we're talking about Earth, so maybe there is something here about going internal, turning the volume down on the outside and turning the volume, well, so that the volume goes up on the inside. Um, that's all I have to say. I kind of want to put some questions here so that you guys have something really definitive to walk away with. Um, the questions here are: what is the um, clarity arising inside of you? What have you been unable to come to a conclusion about, to make a judgment about, or to make a decision about, that you now feel armed with the clarity and information to do so? What is the freedom that comes to you when you finally get to the heart of the matter? What is the freedom that comes to you when you stop beating around the bush and hemming and hawing and telling yourself the truth? What is the freedom that comes to you in how you show up in your relationships? What are these self imposed expectations you've internalized that you're free from? What are you divesting from that is no longer deserving of your emotional energy, no longer deserving of your physical energy? What have you in the past or at present currently taking responsibility for that you fear walking away from because you feel if you walk away, it'll fall apart? What if it actually falls apart? What is the problem with it falling apart? Who are you trying to protect by keeping it from falling apart? And then who's to say it actually will fall apart? And do you really care? And if you do, why? Finally, as you are freeing up psychic energy, emotional energy, your time, your physical energy, what are the possibilities that open up for you? As those possibilities open up for you, whose judgment do you trust on choosing the ones that are right for you? Who do you need to stick your fingers in your ears to? It might be to your old self. Who are you making space to hear that really doesn't deserve to be heard? That's that on that, my friends. How did I do here? 54 minutes, under an hour. Yes. All right. Catch me on Twitter, y'all. What are my announcements here? Uh, Last week I released pre-recorded tarot and astrology readings for the month of October. There are 5 of each. All of the pre-recorded astrology readings for the month of October have been reserved. There are 3 or 4 tarot readings left. You can go to thepeoplesoracle.com or click the link in my bio on Instagram in order to reserve one of those pre-recorded tarot readings. Please read the instructions. Next week, this time, I will be in New Orleans hosting my Sidereal birth chart workshop. There are 2 and a possible places left. So if you would like to join me in New Orleans, please go to thepeoplesoracle.com, click book a reading, and under events, you will see a space to reserve your spot for my New Orleans workshop. If you would like for me to come to your city and host a workshop, let me know. We can make that happen. We're looking for 2020 to make that happen. All right, my people. You all have a happy week. I'll be back on Instagram tomorrow doing my Instagram live talking about the astrology for the week. You don't want to miss it. We've got a Mercury retrograde coming up. This Virgo stellium is breaking up already. We're moving on to Libra, and You be thinking about the end of 2018 in your life. What were you doing? What were you focusing on? Who or what was important to you? What conversations were you having? What circumstances were occurring? Because this moment is relevant to that moment. Let's talk about it. You all have a happy week. Bye.